Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stay-at-Home Lecture. This is the lecture for October. We had to reschedule it. It was originally scheduled for October 5th. We had some technical difficulties, so we rescheduled it for this afternoon. In November, it'll be back to its normal time on the first Thursday from 7 to 8. Thank you all for being here. I'm Tim Nutt, Director of the Historical Research Center, which is the Archives division of the UAMS Library. We are the official repository for the institutional records of UAMS, but also we collect the history of the health sciences throughout Arkansas. So we have materials, standard archival materials, correspondence, photographs. We have a lot of artifacts. So we'd love to have you visit sometime. We're located in the UAMS library on the 5th floor. So if you're ever on campus, please drop by and I'd love to give you a tour. This stay-at-home lecture series is sponsored by the Society for the History of Medicine and Health Professions, which is the Friends organization for the Historical Research Center. And they support the Historical Research Center in a number of ways. Through financial support with help buying books for our History of Medicine collection. They sponsor an annual dinner with a lecture. And then they also have this monthly series, the Stay-at-Home Lectures, which has been going on since March of 2020. So they are held on the first Thursday of every month from 7 to 8. The link that you used to access this one today is the same one that you'll use next time in any future stay-at-home lectures. We'd love to have you a member of the society. And the dues are very inexpensive, $5 for students, and you can be a student anywhere in the world. You do not have to be a student at UAMS. Individuals are $15. So I hope you'll consider joining the society and supporting the Historical Research Center. The URL on your screen will take you to the page where you can fill out a membership form and then send in your check, or you can bypass all that and just go directly to paypal.me/shmhp and just pay your dues directly online without writing a check. So I hope you'll consider joining the society. As I mentioned, this is a monthly lecture series. In November, we will go back to our regular schedule from 7 to 8. It'll be held on November 2nd. And our speaker will be Dr. Kane West, who is the education coordinator for the Hot Springs National Park. And he's going to be talking about the hot springs treatment, the hot springs hidden legacy in American medical history, a history of the use of the hot springs, lowercase hot springs, in treating diseases and other health issues. So that is on November 2nd. As I mentioned, the URL is on your screen. It's the same one that you used today to get in. So I hope you'll join us on November 2nd for that. For this month's lecture, I'm happy to introduce Cody Berry. He is the Special Collections Assistant at the Saline County Library, and he operates the Gann Museum of Saline County, which is run by the Saline County Library. And Cody's going to be talking today about Dr. Dewell Gann Sr. and Dr. Dewell Gann Jr. And the Gann Museum in Benton is actually the former medical office for Dr. Dewell Gann Sr. And we're glad to have Cody here. Cody is a graduate of the Public History Department, where he got his master's in public history. And he is also a prolific author, and has written over 100 articles for the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. So I'm going to turn it over to Cody. I'm going to turn off my audio and video and stop sharing my screen so Cody can share his. And Cody, take it away.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Tim said,
yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. As Tim said, my name is Cody Berry. I'm a Special Collections Assistant at the Saline County Library. My main function is to help manage the museum and its collections. And since January, I've been working hard to digitize files here and to organize the collection. The presentation I'm giving today is a brief history of Dr. Gann Sr. and Jr. For those of you who don't know, the Gann Museum was privately run. It's its own thing, its own nonprofit, from 1980 until about November last year. Now it is a division of the Saline County Library. And what you see here is that's our new logo. And this is the Gann Museum itself. It's at 218 South Market in Benton, Arkansas. And I wanted to let you know that we will be open on Halloween, and we're aiming to have a grand opening in December, a grand reopening to celebrate the museum's unification with the library system. Okay, let's get started. Dr. Dewell Gann Sr. was born near Atlanta, Georgia on March 31st, 1859. Some sources also say 1863, but this is what his death certificate says, so I'm going with that. And Dr. Gann graduated from what is now Emory University in 1986, before studying briefly in New York and in Sheridan, Arkansas, where he practiced with the Dr. B.W. Mason. He married a Martha Harding Whithorn in 1889. She was the daughter of a prominent businessman named Samuel Houston Whithorn. And he also owned the Saline Courier, which is our local newspaper, and the oldest business is still operating in Saline County. It was founded in 1876. In 1890, the Ganns moved to Benton, where they had their son, the future Dr. Dewell Gann Jr., on September 14th. And then a few years later, they had their daughter named Earl. Her name was spelled I-R-L, Gann. And the building that became his office was built in 1893 by some of his patients. Dr. Dewell Gann was also one of the founders of the Saline County Medical Society in around 1903. This picture you see here is him standing outside of this building here on our front porch. And yes, it does pretty much still look like that now. This is about Dr. Gann's practice. I wanted to stick to his medical history. Reportedly, while at Sheridan, one of Dr. Gann's first patients wasn't even human. It was a horse with a briar stuck in his windpipe. Dr. Gann was able to remove the briar and restore the horse to health. And according to his son, in those days, wages were 10 cents an hour. But Dr. Dewell Gann Sr. also accepted labor, cows, chickens, wild honey in return for his work. $10 was the usual fee for a 10-mile horse and buggy drive and the presentation of an heir. I'm not sure what that means. Dr. Dewell Gann Jr. on his father. Here's another quote here. This is from an article by Ananias Yarborough, who is a writer from Saline County. I can see him now mounting his horse for a trip impassable for a buggy. Instruments that might be needed for an emergency can be seen sticking from his coat pockets. The saddlebags too small to carry them, riding behind the saddle. In the bags were all kinds of medicine. Dr. Gann also did house calls when needed. Sometimes, when he didn't want to use a horse, I guess, sometimes he used what was called a velocipede. It is a special sort of rail car. This right here is called a velocipede. It looks like a motorcycle with an extra wheel. And on one occasion, Dr. Gann and his son were riding the velocipede on the railroad tracks when they were forced to abandon it because of an oncoming train. This supposedly happened near what was called Turkey Hill, near the state hospital grounds by Chedester Farm. I'm guessing that somewhere in the state hospital would be like Haskell now. That must be where that happened. By 1941, Dr. Gann Sr. had delivered 3,000 babies without losing a single mother. That's pretty impressive, I think. And Dr. Gann Jr. was born September 14th, 1890. He graduated from Indiana University in 1913 with his medical degree. He was also credited to be the first doctor in Arkansas to introduce the use of radium as a medical treatment, I believe for cancer, in 1916. From 1919 to 1924, he worked as surgeon at Little Rock General Hospital. And reportedly during this time, he developed or invented his famous resuscitator machine. Dr. Gann Jr. used radium from his own bathroom once to treat a blemish on Cora Heighton's skin in the 1940s. Those of you who don't know, Cora Heighton was the wife of Charles Bullitt Heighton, who was the inventor of Nilook pottery, which made Benton very famous back in the 1920s, and the Gann Museum has a big collection of it. They were good friends with the Gann family, and they lived just around the block in what's now known as the Heighton House. And on one occasion, Dr. Gann Jr. noticed a blemish on Cora's skin, and he asked his wife to go to the bathroom to get some radium, and he used it to treat her skin right then and there. I found it interesting that he kept supposedly radioactive material in his house. And I've included the source for this. Arlene Heighton Rainey wrote an article where I got a lot of this information. She was the daughter of Cora and Charles Heighton. And in this, I thought this was an interesting story. I ran Dr. Gann's name, looked him up in a Library of Congress database, and this is one of the stories that came up. Apparently, in 1916, Dr. Gann Jr. dropped a grain of radium worth about $5,000 in a sewer somewhere in Little Rock. The sewer was at the Bankers Trust Company building, and the radium was said to be the only sample of radium in Arkansas at the time. Remember, he was the first to start using it. And the vial that he dropped was about the size of half a match, and was being used on a charity patient suffering with a tumor when it disappeared. Much of the plumbing of the building had to be torn out, as you can see, which is interesting because one of the things we had to do here recently was to fix the plumbing after a lightning strike. And here are some of Dr. Gann Jr.'s awards. See, he served in the Panama Canal Zone where he was discharged in 1919. I'm guessing this is World War I era. He served, I believe he was a captain at that time. He was attending surgeon in Little Rock General Hospital in 1919 to 1924. He did practice briefly here at the Gann Museum building with his father before going to Little Rock. He graduated from Little Rock University, which is now ULR. He was chosen a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh, Scotland, for his work on the Gann resuscitator. He also was a fellow of the International College of Surgeons at Geneva, Switzerland. He received their certificate of merit for his work. Dr. Gann Jr. was a fellow of the American College of Surgeons, and he also was chief of staff of St. Vincent's Infirmary for many years. And thanks to some research from Tim, I now have a timeline of when he was at UMS. He taught gynecology for UMS from 1915 to 1948, and again from 1951 to 54. Thank you so much for that, Tim. He also had a clinical partnership in obstetrics and gynecology, which I believe was also a specialty of his father, Dr. Gann Sr. Established the Martha Harding Gann Memorial Loan Fund for nurses in 1948 with a $15,000 endowment. That scholarship is still going today. So there may be Gann scholars out there who don't know who Martha Gann was. Martha Gann was Senior's wife, and she was very active in the DAR and social groups like that. She was also chosen to represent Arkansas at the inauguration of FDR in the 30s. This is our Gann resuscitator, which for a long time I thought didn't exist, or maybe I would never see one. But in our first year here at the Gann, a couple out in Arizona sent us this. And we have it on display now at the Saline County Library's main branch in Benton at the Bob Hertzfeld Memorial Branch. And what you can see there is it's basically two suction cups that are used manually. The idea was to pump the lungs to use on victims of drowning or gas attacks. This pamphlet here was authored by Dr. Gann Jr., and it explains how to use it and what he intended it to be for. And it was published in a medical journal. This is an advertisement that we have a copy of at the museum. It shows people how it's used, and I think it costs $45 at the time. This right here is some blue Nile oak, which remember the Heightons invented. They were friends of the Ganns. And down here you can't see, but there's some items from bauxite. And one more thing about the resuscitator. According to some documents that Tim and I have found, it was tested on the body of a dog. Yeah. Here we see the Gann building itself and the beautiful Gann mansion. The Gann house was finished in 1895, and the office here in 1893. They're both in the Queen Anne style, but this was here first, and then the house was finished later. You notice that there are two front doors. That's because originally, whenever this was Dr. Gann Sr.'s office, the front section here was divided into two waiting rooms. So if you came inside back in the day, it would have been divided into two small rooms. Women on one side and men on the other. I guess women of the time didn't want to share a waiting space with railroad workers and miners. Dr. Gann's major clients were railroads. He and his son were both surgeons. And I'm not, and I don't know for sure, but they may have conducted at least some surgeries here at the office. This is Market Street. The house, as I told you, was finished in 1895. It was the first in Benton to have indoor plumbing, which is very fancy. And back in April, this is the reason why the museum had been closed for most of the year, is because back in April, this tower right here was struck by lightning. And for some reason, it created a power surge, which took out our lights and damaged the plumbing. This has now been fixed, and we will reopen soon to the public. And the Gann office is notable for one more reason. It is said to be the only building in the world made out of bauxite, it was a plentiful thing at the time. The story goes that some of Dr. Gann's patients couldn't afford to pay him, so they paid him in labor, and they dug up the bauxite and clay and whatever, and they cut it in the blocks and they let it harden for 6 weeks and hand sawed it into big blocks, which they used to build the building. So these stones here are or contain bauxite, which is the ore from which aluminum is derived. If anyone knows anything about Saline County, aluminum was a big deal here for a long time, thanks to Alcoa and Reynolds and their work in Bauxite, Arkansas, which is not far from here. And then here, these are some pictures I took during my work at the library between, after April, after we had to close. I was digitizing their collections there, and these come from the 1952 Chamber of Commerce scrapbook. And the Gann, after it was, Dr. Gann Jr. donated what's now the Gann Museum to the city of Benton in 1946. His father, Dr. Gann Sr., died in 1945, so he gave the building over to the city so it can become a Benton Public Library. And this is where I am now. Now we call this the Williams Gallery, but this is what it looked like when it was a library. These windows are now covered up, and I believe one of these light fixtures survives. There's one in the office that looks just like that. And I believe at the beginning, the Gann Library had about 6,000 books in this tiny building. Here is a front look. This is the front elevation. You see the two doors. They do both open, but normally we only use one. But you can see in the 50s that, I know you can't see it, but Dr. Gann Sr.'s name is still on the windows right here. And at the Gann house, his name is still on one of the side doors and the front door. I thought this was worth sharing. Again, this is 218 South Market, and the house is 224. This is the Gann Mausoleum on Military Road. This is where the family is interred. The mausoleum was built shortly after Dr. Gann Sr.'s daughter died in 1927. She was about 34, I think. She was married twice, once to a doctor named Seth Arnold, and then her second husband was a actor named Albert Haynes. I haven't been able to find what films he or Earl was in. We know that she tried to be an actress and that she was known for throwing extravagant parties at the Gann house when her father and mother were out of town. I would have loved to see what those parties were like. Dr. Gann Sr. had this built after she died. Supposedly, according to rumor, she committed suicide, which is very sad. Martha Harding Gann died in 1940, and Dr. Gann Sr. died in 45. Jr. died after a long illness in 1960. And his wife, his second wife, Agnes Baum Gann, she died about 5 years later. For a brief period, it was her and her sister living in the house. And I believe in the 60s, they had like a shelter built under the house or behind it. Probably during the Cuban Missile Crisis in '62. After Dr. Gann's second wife, Agnes, after she died, the house was sold to different families over the years. I think David DeMuth owned it at one point, and Doyle and Barbara Webb bought it in the late '90s. They still live there today. He's a former state senator, and she's on the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court. But the Gann legacy is still going strong today because the Gann Scholarship at UMS is still going. The Gann Memorial Library, which is what this building was named after it became the library, became a museum in 1980, and became part of the Saline County Library System in 2022. This is our first year operating under the Saline County Library. If you come to the Saline County Library's Benton branch, go and check out the resuscitator. It's a pretty interesting thing. And if you come to the Gann Museum, we have plenty of neat artifacts. We have the Stanner murder exhibit, which is a long story. I don't have time to tell you, but it involves a fire poker and the last legal hanging in Saline County. We have some Native American artifacts and some things from bauxite. And I think that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Cody, for that presentation. I enjoyed it. I just put a comment in the chat that if anyone had any questions, please use them there or type them there. I have a question while we're waiting to see if any other ones come in. Did Dr. Gann see Black patients as well?
Yes, I've read that he did.
Yeah. Okay. And was there, you mentioned the two waiting rooms, one for females and one for men. Was there a waiting room for African Americans, or do you know? Have you researched it all?
I don't know. I just know that we have an old photo of the building when it was his office, and one door says gentlemen and one says ladies.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he discriminated.
Interesting.
But I did read somewhere that he did serve Black patients.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are there members of the Gann family still there, or
There might be some cousins, but Dr. Gann Jr. was married twice,
Mhm.
and he didn't have any kids. And Earl, his sister, she didn't have. She might have had one, but I don't know if it survived. So there might be some Gann cousins here, but not of that group. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I,
We do
I
have.
think by 1970, that family were gone.
Okay, okay. We have a question in the chat. Since the house was made of bauxite, do you know if the house or office had any fixtures made of aluminum?
That's That's an interesting question. I haven't seen any fixtures that are aluminum, but it's been, well, like I said, this building has been updated over the years to fit whatever need at the moment.
Mhm.
I haven't seen any that were aluminum. What was Dr. Gann's exam room, which is now where we keep our 9-look pottery.
Mhm.
It has two entrances because the front was divided. So one would, he would sit outside and wait on patients to come through,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we have his footprint is in the wall.
His footprint is in the wall.
Yeah, I wish I could show you this. There's one corner on what used to be the back door of the original building,
Mhm.
where it's curved in perfectly, like it's straight, and then it's just this unnatural curve because bauxite is such a soft stone.
Mhm.
He would rest his foot up against the wall whenever he rocked in his chair, and we have his rocking chair in the front room, and it wore into it because he used this building from 1893 to 1945.
Cody, do we know anything about the respirator, Gann respirator, how it was used? Was it used in practice, or any information on that?
Well, I know that the federal government bought some before World War II, so they might have saved lives, but I don't know what their success rate was. It's not electrified or anything. It's just two like suction cups that you put on the body and kind of do this yourself. Like I said, for a long time, I thought I'd never see one, and then a couple out in Arizona sent us one, and they had all the paperwork.
Yeah.
It's at the library now. At some point we'll bring it back here and switch that exhibit out. Wait, this behind me, I'm in the gallery now. This is a log cabin display with some guns and things. And then here we got aluminum. This is all samples from the Hurricane Creek plant.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
Do you know, Cody, has anyone ever tried to go out and look for the velocipede remnants?
I don't know. I found that in an article by Yarborough, and I thought that was a really funny story because I just imagine those two guys trying to pedal, and then a train starts to come towards them, and they just had to bail. It probably got. I bet it got destroyed.
Pedal faster or move out of the way.
Yeah.
We have another question in the chat, Cody. Per the 3,000 babies delivered, it is amazing he didn't lose any mothers. Do you know specifics about any specific techniques he was using, Dr. Gann was using to stop hemorrhaging?
I don't know about his specific techniques. This is usually whenever I read about this family, the articles have the same few facts all in a row. So I'm trying to dig deeper. I would love to know how he actually practiced. I read once that he used oils and things to treat, I guess, headaches or something. But I know they were both surgeons, and that's the story, is that he never lost a mother. That's pretty amazing to me. Yeah.
You mentioned that Gann Jr. was worked for a little bit in his dad's office in Benton. Did he, and you may have mentioned this and I might have just missed it, did he have a private practice in Little Rock at all, or did he just work at
I
the
think he
hospital?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he did. I know he lived in Little Rock for a minute.
Mhm.
A lot of this I'm learning for the first time myself.
Mhm.
Just trying to piece together their lives. They're a really interesting family. I'd like to know more about how he used radium,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, and I mean, that was discovered by Marie Curie in the 1890s. So I'm sure he knew by 1916, he knew how dangerous it was.
I wonder where it ended up when after it went into the sewer.
Well, the article said they had to pull up the plumbing.
So do you think they pulled it out? They found it and pulled it
Yeah,
out?
probably did.
Hmm.
But he might. But since it was a bank, you think he might have kept some at the bank, and that's why he was there to get it? I don't
Maybe I can't imagine.
know.
I guess keeping it in a safety deposit box or a vault, what I guess would be just as easy or just as convenient as uh, keeping it anywhere else. I mean,
Yeah.
keeping a vial of radium. Oh, I guess you never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah. Well, it said it was 1 grain or something,
Mhm.
and the bottle was like half a matchstick big.
Mhm.
Can you imagine? I mean,
That'd be easy to lose.
yeah. Yeah. I think there was another article where he was about that, where it said that he said it was stolen or something, but he probably just dropped it. Because if something is that tiny, I'm sure you wouldn't even notice.
And the newspaper article, I think it said that it was worth $5,000. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The Gans did pretty well. That endowment he left was $15,000.
Mhm.
That's a lot in the 40s.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's still going. I found that on the UMS website. The Martha Gann is still going.
Well, I've always wondered what, I've known about the Gann Museum for
Mhm.
a long time, but I didn't know anything about the Dr. Gann or any of these specifics about his practice. So I really appreciate you being here and filling us in.
Well, thank you.
Him.
Yeah, I'm glad I was finally able to do this. I'm sorry that the first time it had to be canceled because my computer wasn't working.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's the way technology usually goes anyway. So,
Yeah,
well, if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat.
yeah.
Or Cody, what's your email address in case anyone wants to email you?
Cody B, CODYB at SalineCountyLibrary.org.
Okay. So if anyone comes across any information on Dr. Gann, feel free to email Cody.
Yeah, either of them.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to dig as deep as I can here so I have plenty to write about.
Have you read an Encyclopedia of Arkansas article about this?
I've written about the Gann House.
Okay.
I didn't write the museum's entry. I think Shirley Kopic did that way before I did.
Mm-hmm.
But the house, my entry on the house has some history of the family in that.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot because it's focused on the house and who owned it and when, but some of it is there. And every month, I write a small article in the libraries magazine. It's called Beyond the Stacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they hand those out for free, the 2 branches. Oh, and I forgot to mention that soon the library is going to have 3 branches. There's one going up in East End right now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's actually in Hensley, but it's the East End branch.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you for coming back and trying this one more time.
I wish I could give you guys a tour On Halloween, we'll be open. I'll be wearing a Victorian costume. Come check it out. We'll be open from 9 to 3.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you haven't been to the Gann Museum, you should attend. So,
Yeah,
Cody, thank
it's
you
a-
again.
Oh, you're welcome.
As I mentioned, our November 2nd legacies and not legacies and lunch, stay at home lecture, excuse me, will be 7 to 8, and it'll be on Hot Springs. So I hope you'll be able to attend that. Cody, thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome.
Everyone, thank you all for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you in November. Thank you all. Have a
All
safe
right,
day.
thank you.